Hey, it's Mazzy, and welcome back to the channel. Bruce Springsteen, what a historic year for Bruce Springsteen fans. First, we had that massive, huge box set, Tracks 2, the Lost Albums. To me, it's one of the best box sets of the year. It might be number one. We'll see how that plays out at the end of the year. And now we have Nebraska, the 82 expanded edition. I'm going to talk about the vinyl set. It's 4 LPs and 1 Blu-ray, a cinematic performance that was just recorded this year that Bruce covers the entire album almost solo, and it's just a stunning recording. I'll get to that. Again, I'm going to be reviewing or explaining and presenting the vinyl box set. I haven't heard the CD set. So those of you who are into the compact disc, at least you can enjoy the ride here and just be patient a little bit if you don't have this yet. This is 4 LP set, and I'm going to go through each LP a little bit just to give you my take on it. Now, a little bit of a background check on this. This really ties in with this movie that just came out, and there's going to be another video, a collaboration video I did with a friend of mine, and depending on when you're watching this, the video is either up or it's soon to be up, of us chatting about the film. I have mixed feelings about that, but it tells partially of the background of this recording, how it was sort of infamous, become this storied album because of its lo-fi nature. It's a home recording on a Tascam 4 track in his bedroom in New Jersey in 1982, and how it was meant to just kind of present these songs at an emotional, personal, sort of a tumultuous time in Bruce's life. Right after the River Tour, after that album, the success of that album, with his first top 10 single of Hungry Heart. Now, to give you a little background where I'm coming from in terms of the Bruce Springsteen world, I first got into Bruce in his second album at the time of its release, The Wild and the Innocent. But I first saw Bruce Springsteen in 1975 when Born to Run came out at the Oakland Paramount Theater, Halloween. Then I saw him another show right after that, the following year, and then the Winterland 78 show, and then the River Tour, and a few times throughout the 80s, but I was kind of going in a different direction. So I didn't see a lot of the stadium shows after that. And even though I bought all the records, my favorites, not specifically in order, are Born to Run, Wild Innocent, Darkness on the Edge of Town, The River, and of course, Nebraska. I love Nebraska. That's probably in my top 3 Bruce Springsteen records. Of course, then there's Tom Joad, Western Stars. Both those records, the 2 versions of that album, I just adore. I think, to me, that's the last great thing he's done. And now, with this sale of his catalog and Sony Music putting these out, I think it's a good time for lovers of Bruce Springsteen. You know, I think a lot of people think when a big label buys out someone, things are going to get lost and they're going to just do crazy things. But Bruce was involved in this. There's also an essay in here by Eric Flanagan telling the whole story of this record and the series of recordings in the box set. Eric also wrote all the liner notes on the Tracks 2 book that came out earlier this year. And so it really adds to the story. If you haven't seen the movie, you haven't read the book the movie was based on, or Bruce's autobiography, this is worth it just for that, to give you a little background. But I think most Springsteen fans who spring for this collection probably know at least the basic facts of Nebraska and how it started as a demo tape at a time when home recording was brand new. Nebraska does have a haunting feeling. There's a reverb-drenched lo-fi feel to it. Of course, 2 years later, he would put out Back in the USA and make him a megastar. But let's talk about the 4 LPs in this record. It starts out with the Nebraska Outtakes. These are the songs that were left off the original album, some home recordings, some that would become more produced songs later for Back in the USA, and some never released. I think it's a stunning record, and as a whole, it works. So LP1, the Nebraska Outtakes, has a real continuity to it. There is a feel to it, like an alternate feel of Nebraska. Different songs, the songs left on that Bruce didn't feel fit in that song cycle, but I love how these really kind of sound-wise, sonically fit together. You get a sense of these field recordings that are like the $1 Million Quartet or early Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, a little bit of Jerry Lee Lewis. So you get a little bit of the folky and rockabilly sound at the same time on there. You get a very haunting version, acoustic version of Born in the USA. Obviously very different than what we know on the big hit in 1984. And I'm glad he kind of didn't put that on. Now, a couple of these songs were on the Tracks 1 back in the day. So there is a little repeat. If you're a Springsteen fanatic, you already have some of this stuff, but you need to put it here to fit with this album to complete the cycle of work here. You have Losing Kind, another version of Downbound Train, Pink Cadillac, a very different version of the version you probably heard here. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful version, that all acoustic version. Big Paycheck, Working on the Highway on the Prowl. And the haunting thing in here, the final song, is Gun in Every Home. And of course, it's a suburban song about, the car in the driveway and a gun in every home. That is even more haunting today than it would have been in 1982, based on where we are in the world right now, and especially in America. I love the sound. The dynamics are pretty good for a Bruce Springsteen record. Now, we all know, or some of us know, that Bruce and John Lando tend to like a very compressed, forward sound on his records. In fact, that's why I do like Nebraska, because it's very ethereal. It's very open. And a lot of his records, even the ones I love, are brash and forward and not what, say, the audiophiles would call dynamics at all. They're not really dynamic records. I thought Western Stars actually was one of his best sounding records. And the Plangent stuff that was on that first box set when the vinyls were reissued, the vinyl records were reissued, sounds excellent, even better than the originals from my point of view. But this is a good sounding record. Again, I'm talking about the vinyl. LP2 is Electric Nebraska. That's the one that was rumored to exist, and for decades, for years, Bruce denied its existence. He forgot that he would take some of these songs in, record with the E Street Band or partially with the E Street Band, and tried to beef them up for what the studio and what the management at the time thought they wanted in the next record, the follow-up to The River. And some of it works better than others, and I think Bruce made the right decision. It's easy for us to look back 43 years after the fact and say, yeah, Bruce, I'm glad he didn't do another rocker. I know there are a lot of Bruce fans that really prefer the rock and roll, the E Street Band, the full enchilada of Bruce on stage. And I like that too, of course, having seen him all those times. One of the most incredible live performances I've seen in my entire life was those 1975, 6, and 78 performances. Incredible. I don't think I enjoyed any other shows since those three shows. The ones in the 80s were great as they are, bigger, louder, more bombastic in a way, but those first shows that I saw were the best by far. Maybe it was the timing, maybe it was the surprising aspect of seeing Bruce in those years, but it was an incredible experience, an incredible rock and roll experience. Literally the future of rock and roll. But the electronic Nebraska stuff works on a different level, and I think it's great that it works as an alternative, as an outtake. It doesn't recreate the whole album. He didn't cover every song that ended up on Nebraska with the E Street Band. You open up with Nebraska. There is a version of Atlantic City, and I think that's the one song that he ended up performing, starting with the Back in the USA tour, and would perform for many years after that. Johnny 9 to 9 is a raucous record, what you'd think it would be. I still prefer the acoustic version on that. You got a Downbound Train, intense rockin' version here. Open All Night, Born in the USA, and Reason to Believe. And of course, Reason to Believe ends the actual proper album. Again, I prefer the Nebraska. So far, based on the first two discs, the outtake is the one for me. We were waiting, and the buildup for this collection has been the Electric Nebraska. As great as it is, that is not my first love compared to the Outtakes album. Let me give you a little presentation on the actual physicalness of this set. It's a bound set, very much like a book. 12 plus inches square, folio style book like the old albums, like the old 78s. That's where the term album actually came from. You have these folios and the records pull up from the top here and slip out. Now, they're pulling the same shit here that Neil Young pulled on his recent box set. This is a major box set, and these are not in polyline sleeves. They're in black paper sleeves that fit in. And I know these things cost 22 to 25 cents a pop more. It would cost you another dollar, another dollar, to put these in polyline sleeves. I'm talking to you, Sony. I love you, baby, but come on, don't cheap out when you do something like this. But then you have the booklet. Now, I want to go through some of the booklet, not the entire thing. I like the booklet. I would prefer the booklet not being bound in, because then you have to have it on your lap with this heavy bounded case, and I bet you this slips out eventually. This comes unattached. It is attached, but you have a great selection of essays, as I said, by Eric Flanagan, and you have some wonderful photographs. I think by Michael Kennedy of the day took some of the sets of the original vintage photographs, some of them. And you have a mix of historic photographs as well as some contemporary photographs of him on stage performing the new version with the film version that's on the Blu-ray. It's just a really beautifully produced set here. Of course, you have lyrics and details of each session, and again, the folio here. Now, the Blu-ray has its own little pocket here that slides up like that in its own paper sleeve. So that's pretty much the content. I'm a fan of this, with those few little exceptions. Again, it's a heavy set, so having a book tipped in like that, glued in, is not something would be my first choice on that. But Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska expanded. So the film version, I think, is the hero here. It's a beautifully filmed version directed by Tom Zimmy. It's gorgeous and beautiful, rich black and white tones, almost like a fog throughout it. Beautiful shadows with the other two musicians kind of in the background, just sitting almost silently. And Bruce nails it. He is very theatrical in a very focused way. You believe he's the storyteller. You believe these stories he's telling, and you can visualize these stories. They're very cinematic. Even though it's one guy and a guitar for the most part, it's very cinematic as a storyteller. And those of you who either saw Bruce on Broadway, or the filmed version of it, you know what I'm talking about. Intense, direct, honest, and it's brilliant, and I just love it. And lastly, the remaster of the proper album. The remaster of Nebraska. This is the only disc that I was disappointed with. And I don't know if someone new to this album will be disappointed, but there's a certain gentleness and a quietness of the original. It's cut low. If you want to really hear it, you have to kind of turn it up a little bit, maybe more than a normal record of the time. That is the beauty of this record, because it's quiet, it's haunting, it's ethereal. Bruce was obviously very influenced by these folk artists and blues artists, and lately I've been all entrenched on these reissues from Bluesville that Kraft has been putting out. And I think they're a stunning series of records, all from the country blues artist to the folk blues to the Piedmont blues. This is kind of in that vein with folk blues, obviously, too, and the Woody Guthries of the world and the storytelling of the world. But this, to me, is a perfectly cut record. This version of the record is cut so much louder than the original. It's like 4 to 5, maybe even more notches louder right off the bat. So I had to turn it down. Usually you want to crank a record, and I like playing music loud. This record, you can turn it up, keep it soft. There's a tonality to the record, the beauty to that original record that I think got lost here for me. Now, maybe someone who doesn't know this record very well won't notice it because it plays well. Think of, there's a a thing that always kind of bothered some people on the White Album. There's a George Harrison song, last track, I believe, on side 3. Is that the song it's on? Long, 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 George Harrison song. Quiet as hell. It's soft. When the album was remastered, remixed, it's jacked up. Now, it's cool to hear the song with everything else, but there's something about that haunting quality of Long, Long, Long that Springsteen gets on most of this record. And I think, again, it's jacked up here. But otherwise, this is a stunning set. And I think it's a great anniversary, a great tribute of an important album in music. It's an historic album. Obviously, it's one of the most important records in Bruce Springsteen's catalog. But I think it's very successful with those caveats that I mentioned there. So thanks for watching. Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska, the 82 expanded edition. Mazzy loves you.